Okay, we are on solving equations involving consecutive integers. Consecutive means in order. Integers means counting numbers. In order counting numbers. So what I mean by that is, if I start, and let me go ahead and connect this with the first type, just consecutive integers. It's integers that come in counting order. So our example is -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. It comes right after the other. Another example, let's say that I don't know what the first one is. Let's say that I start with 16. Well, after 16 has to become 17, 18, 19, so on and so forth. Everything depends on where I start. So if I don't know where I start, I'm going to go ahead and let this represent n. N could represent any number that I start with. So let's say that I start with 34. I know after 34, I have to get 35. The way in which I got 35 is I took 34 plus 1. So if my first number I don't know is n, then I know my next number has to be n plus 1 because I added 1. After 35 has to become 36. So from 34 I added 1 to get to 35, and now from 34 to 36 I have to add 2. So if I don't know my first number, I know I have to add 1 for the next number, and I know I'm going to actually have to add 2 to my second number. What do I mean by this? Here's what I mean. Example 1 says find 3 consecutive integers with a sum. Sum means to add. So I'm going to add 1 number plus 2 number plus 3 number, and this has to add up to 21. So let's go ahead and take an example again. If my first number is 5, my next number has to be 6, and my next number has to be 7. Well, I don't know what my first number is, so my first number will always be n. I don't know. If I don't know that it's 5, I do know to get from 5 to 6, I have to take n plus 1. Then I have to take n plus 2. 5 plus 1 would be 6, 5 plus 2 would be 7. But I don't know what my numbers are. So now we've actually seen this before. This is just an equation. So I know that I can go ahead and I can combine like terms. 1n, 1n, 1n is 3n. 1 plus 2 is 3. Now I can solve. Minus 3 minus 3. 3n equals 18. Divide by 3, and n equals 6. Now I do know my first number. My first number is 6, which means my next number has to be 7. My next number has to be 8. Let's see if this works out. 6 plus 7 is 15. 15 plus 8 is 21. They match. My answer is 6, 7, and 8. That's to find 3 consecutive integers. But then number 2 says find 3 consecutive odd integers. So let's go ahead and look at our consecutive odd integers. Here's an example. If I give you -1, the next number has to be +1. It's an odd number, so we're actually skipping a number in between each and every time. 1 would have to not be 2, but 3. Then 3 becomes 5, 5 to 7, 7, 9, 11, so on and so forth. So, how did I get from -1 to 1? I added 2. How did I get from -1 to 3? I added 4. How did I get from -1 to 5? I added 6. So I'm actually skipping one number every single time. What do I mean? Well, let's go ahead and start off with 17. If my first number is 17, my next odd number would be 19. Then it would be 21. Well, n could represent 17. Therefore, how did I get from 17 to 19? I had to add 2. That's why we add 2, n plus 2. And then how did I get from 17 to 21? I had to add 4, n plus 4. So we are going to use this to solve for odd integers. Let's go ahead and take a look. It says find 3 consecutive odd with a sum of -51. So my first number plus my second plus my third have to equal -51. Well, like I said, if my first number is 17, my next has to be 19 and my next has to be 21. I know this isn't true, but I'm just saying for instance. I don't know my first number, so I'm going to go ahead and put n. N is a variable that represents my number, an unknown. To get from 17 to 19, I had to add 2. So then I'm going to have n plus 2. Then to get from 17 to 21, I had to add 4. That means that this has to be n plus 4. I can erase my example. And now I can go ahead and solve my equation. I can go ahead and combine like terms, 3n, 2 plus 4 is 6, and this adds up to -51. Minus 6 minus 6, 3n equals -57. Divide by 3, n equals -19. So I know my first odd. Well, if this is -19, if I add 2 to -19, because my next odd, we're actually getting closer to 0 because I'm adding a positive 2, so I'm actually less in debt. -19, -17, -15. Those have to be my 3 numbers. Let's check. 19 plus 17, that's 16. That gives me 36. If I add 15, that gives me 11. That gives me 51. So it matches. My answer would be -19, -17, -15. Number 3. Find 3 even integers with the sum of -84. So let's go ahead and look up here now. Even integers. Here's my example. -2, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, so on and so forth. What is happening? I add 2 from -2 to 0. To get from -2 to 2, I add 4. And then to get from -2 to 4, I had to add 6. This is identical to my odd numbers. What do I mean? Here's what I mean. Let's say n is 16. If n is 16, my next number has to be 18. How did I get from 16 to 18? I added 2. Then my next number would be 20. How did I get from 16 to 20? I added 4. So n plus 2, n plus 4. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. Find 3 even integers with the sum. So I'm adding one number plus another number plus a number to give me -84. Once again, let's say I have 16, 18, 20. If I don't know that this is 16, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put an n. I have to add 2 to get to the next number. I have to add 4 to get from 16 to 20. These are identical setups. Even and odd are identical setups. Now let me go ahead and solve the equation. I have 1, 2, 3 n's, and I have 2 plus 4 is 6. Minus 6, 3n equals -90. Divide by 3, n equals -30. I know my first number. If my first number is negative 30, the next even number going closer to 0 would be negative 28, and then negative 26. If I add all of these, I will get negative 84. 30 plus 28 is 58. 58 plus 26 is 84. I found my answers. And we are done.